Hi, welcome to week 3 of the Grit Gym Nutrition course. I want to start out today with a quick tip. So, the 80-20 rule. You don't have to be perfect 100% of the time. So many diets and nutritional philosophies, if you aren't perfect 100% of the time, you're failing. The good news is that doesn't need to happen. You don't need to be perfect 100% of the time. You need to be perfect 80% of the time. And then you have a little bit, you've got 20% for leeway. You know, I think it's important to keep this in mind because there's so often that people have a cheat, right? Like, oh, I had a piece of chocolate cake this week. And you're like, oh, I ruined my diet. I'll start again next week. Or you carry around a bunch of guilt because you feel like a failure. You're not a failure. As long as you can fit it into your 20%, you're golden. So there's a bunch of different ways people spread out their 20%. So some people like a cheat day. So they eat really strictly 6 days a week and then they use a cheat day. Some people just like to mix it up throughout the week. And some people who eat at restaurants quite a bit, this is probably where I fall into, use that 20% to account for questionable ingredients in food you don't cook. So when you're not cooking your own food, there's always the chance that there's going to be crappy oils, preservatives, extra sugar. There's just other things added into your food that wouldn't be there if you were cooking it yourself. So a lot of people use it to account for that stuff. It's important to also think that if you're doing a cheat day, that you can't binge. It really needs to be 20% of your diet, your overall diet. You can't eat 50% of your food in one day and then call it, a cheat day. It needs to be 20% or less of your diet. Also, it's important to mention that what gets counted as your 20% is going to change over time. The more you settle into a new lifestyle and change the way you eat and your palate changes and your cravings change, something that you might have considered to not be a cheat will over time possibly turn into that 20%. So it's in flux, but when you're looking at your food, just try and visualize that 80-20 split and make sure that you're doing awesome 80% of the time and you give yourself a little leeway. Give yourself a little leeway 20% of the time. Sweeteners. So the key to sweeteners is to keep them to the lowest amount possible without feeling deprived. So it's going to look different for everybody. There's no magic, you should have X number of grams of sugar a day, or you should have no sugar. This will look different for everybody. But we're talking about forever here, so be reasonable. I think that we see a lot of people who are like, oh, I just went on this diet where I cut out all sugar, and I did great, but then I started back up again because I had bad cravings. Be reasonable. You want to keep it to the lowest amount you can be satiated with. And that might taper over time. This is another thing that might change over time. But the caloric value of your sweetener doesn't matter. So there's no free passes in the sweetener department. Whether it's caloric or not, all sweeteners, they all need to be kept to a minimum. But there is some things about 0-calorie sweeteners that you should know. So the first one is they can overstimulate taste receptors. So people who drink a lot of diet soda, while they aren't intaking calories while drinking the soda, it does overstimulate those taste receptors and make them more susceptible to eating other more sweet foods throughout the day because their taste receptors are very used to that amount of sweetness. 0-calorie sweeteners can affect the good bacteria in the gut, which is super important for good health. The healthier gut is going to really dictate a lot of your overall health. And 0-calorie sweeteners can cause insulin spikes in some people. So they're doing a lot of research on this now. And I don't think it's true for everybody, but it is true for some people. Where you drink something sweet, regardless of the amount of calories in it, and your body releases insulin to meet that sugar. But when you drink 0-calorie sweeteners, the insulin gets there and there's no sugar there for it to to meat. So you just have this insulin spike, which is also quite bad for your health. So let's talk about what the best choices are and what makes them the best choices. So look for sweeteners that contribute to health, not just ones that aren't bad for you. This is a concept that is going to take you far. And not just when it comes to sweeteners, but when it comes to your entire diet. What is this food doing to contribute to the health and nourishment of my body? When you change your mindset from being taking things away, avoiding things, making it like, I only can eat so many calories, I can only eat, I can't eat sugar, I can't do this, I can't do that, oh, this isn't that bad. When you start actually looking at your food about what it can do for you, and the fact that you actually want to eat it and you want to nourish your body, that mindset shift is going to be huge for you, because you're going to get away from that deprivation. All right, so honey, dates, maple syrup, molasses. I would say those are excellent choices. Now, there's still sweeteners, and there's still things that you're going to want to keep to the minimum. But if you're going to have something sweet, I think that these are excellent choices because they add something else to your diet rather than just sugar, chemicals. There's some honey, high in magnesium, potassium, dates are high in antioxidants. These add something to your diet. So that's why I suggest them. So there's a few different types of dietary fats that I want to touch on, just so you guys can get an idea of what the different dietary fats are and what they're good for, what you should avoid, kind of just like a quick overview of oils and fats. So the first one I want to touch on is saturated fat. So they're solid at room temperature. They're the most stable cooking fat. They're wrongfully labeled bad fats. You don't need to avoid saturated fat. As long as we're talking about those guidelines where you're using a thumb size portion for your fats, it's totally fine. Small amounts of saturated fat are not bad for you. What is bad for you when it comes to fat is a diet high in fat and a diet high in refined carbohydrates. So those together create big health problems. So when I tell you that they're solid at room temperature, these are going to be your lards, your tallows, your coconut oil, and they can handle the highest heat. So when you're cooking on high heat, they are going to retain their nutrition and they are going to they will not go rancid like some of the other oils are if they are overheated, basically. It's important also to note animal fats should ideally be from high quality sources. As far as I'm concerned, if you're going to splurge on anything in your grocery budget, the thing to splurge on would be high quality animal products. When you're talking about dairy, you're talking about meats, you're talking about cooking fats, animal products from grass-fed beef, pasture-raised pork, responsibly, ethically, and nutritiously raised food. It's going to be better for you all around. They're going to have much more nutrition, and the fat, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but their omega-3 to omega-6 ratio is going to be much, much better. But yeah, so if you have a little wiggle room in your budget, this is going to be the place that I always would say is worth the money. Okay, let's talk about monosaturated fats. So those are going to be your olive oils, your avocado oils, your nut oils. They appear to lower bad cholesterol, but they can be damaged when too much heat is applied. So they're less stable than saturated fats. So these are kind of the middle guys. Polyunsaturated fats, they're more stable than those, but less stable than saturated fats. So these are going to be good for light sauteing on low to medium heat. These are good for dressings. These are very healthy for you. Keep in mind that portion guideline, but totally good for you. Just be careful you don't overheat them because they will oxidize. In the supplemental materials for this particular week, there is a little graph that has a bunch of different cooking oils and fats and kind of where they rank depending on the heat you're using. So feel free to print that out and use that. That'll kind of give you some clarity on one page. So there's polyunsaturated fats. So PUFAs are known for being highly unstable. They can go rancid and oxidize before you even consume them. So there's two different types of polyunsaturated fats. There's omega-6 and omega-3. So the omega-6s are going to be like your run-of-the-mill vegetable oil, soybean oil, canola oil, all of those kind of things. They're really pro-inflammatory. I think that cooking oils high in omega-6 should be avoided. We get too much omega-6 in our diet as is, and this is just overkill. Omega-3 polyunsaturated fats are really good for you. They're anti-inflammatory, and they really do help balance out that omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. So when you add more omega-3 to your diet, what the normal standard American diet is, we get tons of omega-6s and a little bit of omega-3s. And really, in a perfect world, we kind of want that to be a 50-50, but it's always really skewed. So by taking omega-3 supplements, we're bringing it up so that we can balance it out, which is a good thing. The more balanced it is, the better. But these are not cooking oils. These are supplement oils. So let's see, we'll keep going here. Let's talk about trans fats too. So there's a teeny little bit of trans fats that are that occur naturally in animals with rumens. These are not the kind of trans fats that are harmful to your health. Industrial trans fats are the problem. So they have a different chemical structure than other types of fat. They should be avoided at all costs. There's tons of problems associated with them. They're just like a total frankenfood. Do not eat those. That's basically the moral of the story. But this little graph here, it's important to note that all oils and fats are a combination of all of these fats. So when I call lard a saturated fat or an olive oil an unsaturated fat, it's kind of a misnomer. They're kind of all different percentages, and you can look over here on the graph and see like what percentage things are. So you guys have probably heard of the term hydrogenated. So this is a process that turns an unsaturated fat into a saturated fat. So those omega-6 oils I was telling you about that are no good, a lot of them are hydrogenated. So basically, a hydrogen molecule is forced into the oil so it mimics the taste and texture of a saturated fat. The thing with these is that it makes them shelf stable forever, which is actually a problem for your body. You want your food to actually, if your food naturally rots, it really is made for your body to digest it, if that makes sense. Like, you want your food to break down. It's less taxing on your body when food is able to be broken down. Foods that never break down, like and are shelf stable forever, are very, very difficult for your body to process, if they can at all. And they're super nutritionally void. There's nothing good in these that is going to help you in any way. So you'll also hear the term partially hydrogenated. So you partially complete the hydrogenation process, but they're actually even worse than fully hydrogenated oils, because they always contain industrial trans fats. And this is the epitome of a frankenfood. It becomes completely unrecognizable. So stay away from these. Refined oils, so you'll see that a lot on coconut oil is a good example. Refined oils are more thoroughly filtered and strained than unrefined. And usually they're heated up. So refining reduces the nutrient level, but it also reduces the flavor. So it removes like the particles and the little bit that gives oil a stronger flavor sometimes, but sometimes it makes its shelf life less long. It makes the shelf life shorter because there's actual teeny little microscopic pieces in the oil that can go rancid. So it makes a refined oil, while it's less nutrient dense, will last longer for storage and is less resistant to smoking. All hydrogenated oils are refined, but not all refined oils are hydrogenated. So in certain contexts, if you want a flavorless cooking oil to use on high heat, a refined oil may be a good choice in that circumstance, but you don't want a hydrogenated oil. Oxidative rancidity is associated with the breakdown of oil. It's the oxygen in the air degrades it. That's why processing methods as well as shelf life become important. Some oils are rancid before you even get them, so it's really important to pay attention to shelf life on oils. So why you shouldn't be scared of good quality fats. Da, 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 da. So I think that the world is starting to change now, and people are starting to realize that fats aren't as scary as they thought they were 10 years ago. But there's still a lot of people who go to the store and pick up a yogurt and they still buy the 0% fat yogurt, or the low-fat yogurt, or the low-fat milk, or like, we're just programmed to think that lower fat is healthier. And that's not true. Low-fat products are usually higher in sugar and additives compared to the full-fat alternative. They have to add things in to give products the mouthfeel of a full-fat product while being a low-fat. So they usually have to add in other things into them. So buying low-fat dairy products especially, don't do it. Just buy the full-fat, move on. There's no reason to buy the low-fat products. Another thing, number 2, fats are necessary for the absorption of vitamins and minerals. I'm sure you guys have heard of fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K. You actually need dietary fat to be able to adequately process these vitamins in your body. Satiation. Fat digests the slowest of all the macronutrients. When it comes to carbohydrates, protein, and fat, fat is the slowest, so it keeps you more satiated. So if you guys have ever, a lot of times when you go on a diet, you eat a low-fat, low-carb, high-protein diet, and you're freaking starving all the time. So adding in that little bit of fat is going to pay you dividends in satiation in the long run. And number 4, it makes your healthy food taste better, right? Like, all the time people are like, oh, I don't like Brussels sprouts. You don't like boiled, gross Brussels sprouts that your great-grandma made. Nobody likes to eat them. They're gross. But you know what people do like to eat? Brussels sprouts roasted in coconut oil, well seasoned, or Brussels sprouts fried in a little bit of bacon fat. Those are tasty. So finding ways to make healthy food taste delicious is going to be a huge win for you. You want it to taste good, so you want to eat it. So when it comes to cooking oil, and like I said, in the supplemental materials for this week, you're going to find that chart. But touching on this really quick, when it comes to low heat and dressings, I always go with avocado oil. Medium heat, did I say avocado? I always go with olive oil for low heat and dressings, avocado oil for medium heat, and ghee or coconut oil for a higher heat. And there's other better and worse choices in there, but those are my go-tos. So check out that chart for more information. When it comes to dietary fat, I need to breathe. When it comes to dietary fat, whole fat dairy, olives, egg yolks, avocado, and fatty fish are excellent choices. And last but not least for this week, let's talk about meal prep and planning. So I put little quotes up here just to be cute. If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And also, if you don't have time to do it right, when will you have time to do it over? These are both super relevant when it comes to meal planning. Listen, I know none of us have time, and I know that we're all too busy to meal plan, but the thing is, you can make this as easy or as hard as you want. But make an outline for what you're going to eat for meals and snacks this week. Use your hand portion guidelines that we've already learned about. get your veggies in, go with a shopping list, or better yet, skip the store, order online. And honestly, you could have your groceries delivered. You could use your meal planning, like when you don't have time to meal prep, you could be meal prepping and then get them delivered so you don't have to drive to the store and save yourself time that way. And you probably will save money too because you're not going to be grabbing anything else along the way. Know your vices and have a plan to substitute when cravings hit. Do not keep food in your house that you don't want to eat because you're going to eat it. Don't tempt fate. And this can be as easy or as hard as you want. Like I said, your meal plan doesn't have to be difficult. It could just be like a sandwich with a bunch of veggies and some lunch meat. It can be, you know, a rotisserie chicken and a bag of frozen vegetables. Like, you don't need to overcomplicate it. Meal plan sounds very grandiose, and it doesn't need to be. There's no reason it needs to be that big of a deal, but you do need a plan in place. By automating this, it's going to make your life a lot easier. It'll give you something to grab when you're hungry instead of grabbing something that you will regret eating. Just make a plan. That's no big deal, right? But seriously, try it. And like I said, don't feel obligated to make it big and serious and this huge deal, but you do need to plan. And finally, I want to say, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. These are good words to live by. You know, things don't have to be perfect. Sometimes good is enough. So don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Keep that in mind. All right, so let's wrap it up with your homework. So we're going to keep building on top of our concepts here. You're going to continue journaling. You're going to continue drinking half your body weight in ounces a day outside of meals and workouts. You're going to continue eating 1 serving of veggies with each meal. You're going to continue using your portion guidelines. And then we're going to add in swapping out sweeteners and oils for better choices. And then we're also going to put in, come up with a meal plan for the upcoming week that supports your goals while taking into account your preferences and personalities. So this is exactly why we don't give you a meal plan, right? People ask us all the time, hey Amber, can you just give me a meal plan? Yeah, of course, I can help you reach your goal and hand you a piece of paper, but then in 6 weeks when I'm gone, you're just gonna eat how you ate before. You didn't learn any new skills. So it's important that you take into account the kind of foods you like, you know, your preferences, what makes you feel good after you eat, and what's like a snack that you like that you feel fulfilled by but it's not derailing you. These are all going to be different for everybody. So it's really important to make this personal for you. And this week I'm perfectly happy to like go over some ideas with you and we can kind of brainstorm about what's going to work. But coming up with a meal plan and like a template of what you want to eat that can guide you in times when you're stressed out, you're maxed out, you don't have time to deal with your food and you would normally run through a drive-through. If you can plan ahead, you can avoid those pitfalls. So that's what I want to talk about this week with you guys. I want to talk about how you can meal plan to fit your life. And I will see you guys later.